I never thought I'd become the talk of Westridge High. Not in a million years. My mom always said to keep my head down, focus on my studies, and stay out of trouble. For the most part, I listened. I was the quiet kid who sat in the back of the class, got decent grades, and kept to myself. My name's Andre, and until last week I was practically invisible. It was a regular Tuesday afternoon. The final bell had rung and the hallways were packed with students rushing to catch their buses or head to after-school activities. I was at my locker, stuffing books into my backpack when I heard the commotion. Tyler Reynolds and his crew were at it again. Tyler was the kind of guy everyone knew to avoid. Tall, athletic, and always surrounded by his followers who laughed at everything he said. He ruled the school through fear, and the teachers either didn't notice or pretended not to. "Hand it over, new kid." Tyler's voice boomed down the hallway. I peeked around my locker door to see what was happening. Tyler had cornered a boy I hadn't seen before. The new kid was shorter than Tyler by at least a head, with glasses that kept sliding down his nose. He clutched his backpack to his chest like it contained all his worldly possessions. "I don't have anything," the new kid stammered, his voice barely audible over the hallway chatter. "Don't lie to me." Tyler stepped closer, towering over him. "I saw you with that fancy calculator in math class. My buddy here needs one for the test tomorrow." I should have walked away. That's what everyone else was doing, hurrying past, eyes down, pretending not to see. It wasn't my business. I didn't even know the new kid's name. But something inside me shifted. Maybe it was remembering how my little brother came home crying last year when some kids took his lunch money. Maybe it was thinking about how my dad always said that doing nothing when you see something wrong makes you part of the problem. Before I knew what I was doing, I closed my locker and walked toward them. "Hey," I called out, surprised by how steady my voice sounded. "Leave him alone." The hallway went quiet. Tyler turned slowly, his eyes narrowing when he saw me. I wasn't exactly impressive. Average height, average build. Definitely not the type to challenge the school's most feared bully. "Mind your own business," Tyler said, his tone dismissive. He turned back to the new kid. I took another step forward. I said leave him alone. This time Tyler fully turned to face me. His friends formed a half circle behind him, all wearing the same mocking smiles. "Look who decided to be a hero today," Tyler laughed, and his friends joined in. "What are you going to do about it, Andre? Call a teacher?" The way he said my name surprised me. I didn't think he even knew who I was. "No," I replied, my heart pounding in my chest. "I just think 5 against 1 isn't very fair." The new kid looked at me with wide eyes, a mix of fear and gratitude on his face. Tyler took a step toward me. "So now it's 5 against 2. That better?" I swallowed hard. This wasn't going according to plan, not that I had a plan to begin with. My hands were sweating and I was beginning to regret my decision, but I couldn't back down now. "Actually," came a voice from behind me, "make that 3. I turned to see David Chen standing there. David was in my chemistry class, quiet, smart, kept to himself like me. Tyler's confidence faltered for just a second. Then another voice. 4. Layla from my English class stepped up beside David. 5. Another student joined. 6. And another. In less than a minute, there were 10 of us standing together, facing Tyler and his crew. Students who normally never spoke to each other, who sat at different lunch tables, who ran in different circles, all suddenly united. Tyler looked around, clearly not expecting this turn of events. His friends shifted uncomfortably, no longer smiling. "Whatever," Tyler finally said, backing up. "Wasn't worth my time anyway." He gestured to his friends, and they all walked away, trying to look like they were choosing to leave rather than being forced to. The hallway erupted in whispers. The new kid, his name was Ben, I later learned, looked at me like I was some kind of superhero. "Thanks," he said, adjusting his glasses. "You didn't have to do that." "Yeah, I did," I replied, surprised by how right it felt. The students who had stood with us started introducing themselves to each other. People who had passed each other in the halls for years without speaking were suddenly talking, laughing, connected by what had just happened. Ms. Rivera, our history teacher, approached us. I tensed, expecting to be in trouble for causing a scene. Everything. Okay here? She asked, looking around at our unusual gathering. Yes, ma'am, I said. We were just helping Ben find his way to the bus. She studied my face for a moment, then nodded slowly. Good. That's what I like to see. Students helping each other. As she walked away, I could have sworn I saw her smile. That afternoon changed something at Westridge High. It wasn't dramatic. Tyler and his friends still strutted around like they owned the place. But something subtle had shifted. In the cafeteria the next day, Ben sat at my table. So did David and Layla. By Friday, our table had doubled in size. Word spread about what happened. Some details got exaggerated. According to one version, I had challenged Tyler to a fight. Definitely not true. But the important part of the story remained intact. Someone had stood up and others had followed. The most surprising change, though, was in me. I'd spent so long trying to be invisible that I'd forgotten how it felt to be seen, to be part of something. My mom noticed it too. You seem different, she said that weekend as I helped her with dinner. More confident. I shrugged, not sure how to explain it. Made some new friends at school. That's good, she said, smiling. Your dad always said you had natural leadership in you. I thought about that as I chopped vegetables. I'd never considered myself a leader, just a regular kid trying to get through high school without any drama. But maybe that's not all I was meant to be. On Monday morning, I walked into school with my head a little higher. Ben was waiting by my locker along with David and a couple of others from our new lunch group. Hey, Ben said, grinning. We were thinking of starting a study group. You in? Before I could answer, I noticed Tyler and two of his friends walking toward a freshman at the water fountain. The same predatory look was on Tyler's face. Our eyes met across the hallway. For a second, I thought he might change direction, come after me instead. But something in my stance, or maybe the fact that I wasn't alone anymore, made him hesitate. He nudged his friends, and they walked past the freshman without a word. Andre? Ben was looking at me expectantly. I turned back to my new friends and smiled. Yeah, I'm in. I didn't know it then, but that moment in the hallway was just the beginning. Sometimes the biggest changes start with the smallest actions, and sometimes finding your voice means helping others find theirs too. As we headed to first period, walking together instead of alone, I realized something important. Standing up to a bully didn't require fists or fighting. It just required courage and not being afraid to be seen, and at Westridge High we were all starting to see each other clearly for the first time. Word travels fast in high school. By the end of the week, everyone knew about what happened in the hallway. Some people started nodding at me in the halls. Others would smile or give me a quick thumbs up. It was weird being noticed after years of blending into the background. But not everyone was happy about the change. Tyler and his friends kept their distance, but I could feel their eyes on me, calculating, waiting. The peace felt temporary, like the calm before a storm. You know he's not going to let this go, right? Layla said during lunch on Friday. Our table had grown again. There were about 15 of us now, a mix of freshmen, sophomores, juniors, and seniors who had never hung out together before. Tyler's got a reputation to protect, David added, lowering his voice. His whole thing is being the guy nobody stands up to. I pushed my mystery meat around my tray, trying to look more confident than I felt. What's he gonna do? There are more of us than them now. Ben adjusted his glasses nervously. My cousin went to Northside High before transferring here. He said Tyler got kicked out for fighting. A chill ran down my spine, but I tried not to show it. We're not going to fight anyone. We're just not going to let him push people around anymore. After lunch, I headed to chemistry class. As I turned the corner, I nearly ran straight into Coach Wilson. He taught PE and coached the wrestling team. Tyler was his star athlete. Andre, he said, crossing his arms. Got a minute? My stomach dropped. Was I in trouble? Had Tyler said something? To him? Yes, sir, I managed to say. Coach Wilson was a large man with a perpetual sunburn and a booming voice that could be heard across the gym. But now he spoke quietly. Heard about what happened with you and Reynolds. I stared at my shoes. I didn't start anything, Coach. Didn't say you did. He paused, looking around to make sure no one was in earshot. Look, I know Tyler can be intense, competitive spirit and all that, but there's a line. I looked up, surprised. Was Coach Wilson actually taking my side, sir? He sighed. I've been trying to get through to him. Kid's got talent, but he's got a chip on his shoulder the size of Texas. Coach Wilson ran a hand over his short hair. Just wanted you to know I'm keeping an eye on things. Don't want this situation escalating. I don't want trouble, I said. Honestly, good man. He gave me a nod. Neither do I. Now get to class before you're late. As I hurried to chemistry, my mind was racing. Coach Wilson's words were both reassuring and unsettling. If even the teachers were worried about Tyler, maybe the situation was more serious than I thought. David was already at our lab table when I arrived, setting up the equipment for our experiment. Everything okay? He asked, noticing my expression. You look like you've seen a ghost. Just had a talk with Coach Wilson, I said, putting down my backpack. About Tyler. David's eyebrows shot up. What did he say? Basically that he's keeping an eye on things. I think he's worried Tyler might do something. Great, David muttered. That's comforting. For the rest of the day, I couldn't shake the feeling of being watched. Every time I turned a corner, I half expected to find Tyler waiting for me. But I didn't see him at all, which was somehow worse. When the final bell rang, I texted my mom to say I was staying late to study. Then I headed to the library where we'd agreed to meet. Me, Ben, David, Layla, and a few others from our growing group. The library was nearly empty. Ms. Patel, the librarian, smiled as our group claimed a large table in the back corner. What exactly are we doing here? Asked Ryan, a sophomore who had joined our lunch table yesterday. We're starting something, Layla said, pulling out her notebook. I'm calling it the Student Support Network. That sounds like a club for computer nerds, Ryan groaned. It's not just about standing up to Tyler, Layla continued, ignoring him. It's about changing the whole culture here, making sure everyone has someone to turn to when they need help. Like peer counseling? Ben asked. Kind of. But more than that. Layla's eyes were bright with enthusiasm. What if we created a system where every student at Westridge knew they had backup, where bullying wasn't tolerated by anyone, not just teachers? And how exactly do we do that? David asked. He didn't sound skeptical, just practical. Layla laid out her plan. We would start by creating a buddy system for new students. No more kids getting lost in the halls or sitting alone at lunch. We'd organize study groups so no one had to struggle through difficult classes alone. And we'd establish a presence in the hallways between classes, not confrontational, just visible. This is great and all, said Kate, a quiet junior I barely knew. But what about Tyler? He's not going to just back off because we're being nice to each other. Everyone looked at me like I had the answer. The truth was, I had no idea. I'd acted on instinct that day in the hallway. I hadn't planned on becoming the leader of some anti-bullying movement. I started slowly. Tyler has power because people are afraid to stand up to him. But there's something else too. I remembered what Coach Wilson had said about Tyler having a chip on his shoulder. Maybe he's angry about something. Maybe there's a reason he acts the way he does. Are you saying we should feel sorry for him? Ryan asked incredulously. No, just that understanding why he bullies others might help us figure out how to stop him. The discussion continued with everyone offering ideas. By the time we left the library, we had a plan, not just for dealing with Tyler, but for making Westridge a better place for everyone. As we walked to the parking lot, Ben fell into step beside me. My dad's picking me up, he said. Need a ride? Nah, I'm good. I only live a mile away. I usually walk. Ben nodded, then hesitated. Thanks again for what you did. No one's ever stood up for me like that before. Don't mention it, I said, suddenly embarrassed. Anyone would have done the same. But they didn't. Ben pointed out. You did. After Ben left, I started the walk home. The late afternoon sun cast long shadows as I cut through the park that separated my neighborhood from the school. My mind was so full of everything we'd discussed that I almost didn't notice the three figures waiting on the path ahead until I was too close to turn back. Tyler stood in the center, flanked by his two most loyal followers, Alex and Damon. They were leaning against the fence that ran along the park's edge, trying to look casual, but I knew they'd been waiting for me. My heart rate spiked. I thought about turning around, finding another way home, but that would just delay the inevitable. I kept walking, my pace steady even as my pulse raced. "Well, look who it is," Tyler said as I approached. "The hero of Westridge High." I stopped a few feet away from them, keeping some distance but not backing down. "I'm just trying to get home, Tyler." "Funny thing about reputations," Tyler continued, as if I hadn't spoken. "They're hard to build but easy to lose." He pushed off from the fence and took a step toward me. "You've been making me look bad, Andre." "That's not what I'm trying to do," I said, keeping my voice level. "No?" Tyler raised an eyebrow. "Then what are you trying to do with your little lunchtime club? Heard you were all in the library today, making big plans." Word really did travel fast at Westridge. I wondered who had told him. "We're just trying to make the school better for everyone," I said. "Including you." That seemed to catch Tyler off guard. His eyes narrowed suspiciously. "What's that supposed to mean?" I thought carefully about my next words. This moment felt important somehow, like everything could either get much worse or, maybe, just maybe, a little better. "It means," I said slowly, "that whatever's going on with you, whatever's making you want to push other people down, it doesn't have to be that way." For a brief moment, something flickered across Tyler's face, something vulnerable, almost pained. Then his expression hardened again. "You don't know anything about me," he said, his voice low and dangerous. "You're right," I agreed. "I don't. But I'd like to." Alex and Damon exchanged confused glances. This clearly wasn't going the way they'd expected. Tyler stared at me for what felt like an eternity. I held my ground, meeting his gaze steadily even as my knees felt weak. Finally, he stepped back. "This isn't over," he said, but the threat sounded hollow, almost routine. "It doesn't have to be anything," I replied. "We don't have to be enemies, Tyler." He didn't respond to that. Instead, he jerked his head at Alex and Damon, and the three of them walked away, leaving me standing alone on the path, my heart still pounding. As I watched them go, I realized something important. I wasn't afraid anymore. Not really. And maybe, just maybe, Tyler Reynolds wasn't as fearsome as everyone thought. The next week at school was strange. Our group, now officially calling ourselves the Student Support Network despite Ryan's complaints about the name, grew larger every day. We'd started implementing Layla's buddy system for new students, and teachers were beginning to notice the change in atmosphere. Tyler and his crew kept their distance. They still strutted around the school like they owned it, but something was different. I'd catch Tyler watching our lunch table sometimes, his expression unreadable. "He's planning something," David insisted during our Wednesday meeting in the library. "This is the calm before the storm." "I don't think so," I said, remembering the look on Tyler's face in the park. "I think he's confused. We're not reacting the way he expects." Ms. Rivera, our history teacher, had agreed to be the faculty sponsor for our group, making us an official school club. She sat with us now, listening to our plans and occasionally offering advice. "You know," she said thoughtfully, "in my 20 years of teaching, I've found that bullies are often the ones hurting the most." "That doesn't excuse their behavior," Layla pointed out. "Of course not," Ms. Rivera agreed, "but understanding the root cause can help address the problem more effectively." She looked directly at me. "Andre, you had an insight when you suggested trying to understand why Tyler acts the way he does." I shrugged, uncomfortable with the attention. "It was just a thought." "A good one," she insisted. "Have you considered inviting Tyler to join one of your meetings?" The suggestion was met with immediate resistance. David thought it was too risky. Ben looked terrified at the prospect. Even Layla, usually the most open-minded of the group, seemed skeptical. "What if it's a trap?" Ryan asked. "What if he's just coming to scope us out, figure out how to break us apart?" Ms. Rivera waited patiently for the objections to subside. "It's just a suggestion, but sometimes the most powerful thing you can do with an adversary is to invite them to the table." The idea stayed with me for the rest of the day. As final period ended, I made a decision that surprised even me. I found myself walking toward the gym, where the wrestling team practiced after school. I stood in the doorway, watching. Tyler was on the mat, grappling with another team member. His face was intense, focused. Coach Wilson paced around them, shouting instructions. When the match ended, Tyler won. Coach spotted me and walked over. "Andre," he said, his voice neutral. "Something I can help you with?" I was hoping to talk to Tyler, actually. When he's done, Coach Wilson's eyebrows rose slightly. "Everything okay?" "Yeah, I just want to talk." He studied me for a moment, then nodded. "Practice ends in 20 minutes. You can wait if you want." I sat on the bleachers watching the team run drills. Tyler was good, really good. He moved with a confidence and precision that was impressive. When practice ended and the team headed for the locker room, Coach Wilson said something to Tyler and gestured in my direction. Tyler looked over, his face showing surprise, then suspicion. He said something to Coach, then reluctantly walked toward me, still in his wrestling gear, sweat glistening on his forehead. "What do you want?" he asked, crossing his arms defensively. I stood up, suddenly nervous. "I wanted to invite you to our meeting tomorrow, the Student Support Network." Tyler's expression shifted from suspicion to disbelief. "You're joking." "I'm not. We meet in the library after school on Thursdays." I took a deep breath. "I think you should hear what we're trying to do, directly from us, not through rumors." "Why would I want to do that?" I hesitated, choosing my words carefully. "Because I think you're smarter than people give you credit for. And I think you know that what you've been doing isn't working for you anymore." His eyes narrowed. "You don't know anything about what works for me." "Maybe not," I admitted, "but I do know that being feared isn't the same as being respected, and I think you want respect." For a long moment, Tyler just stared at me. I half expected him to laugh in my face, or worse, but instead, he uncrossed his arms and let them fall to his sides. "I'll think about it," he said finally. It wasn't a yes, but it wasn't a no either. I nodded, trying not to show my surprise. "That's all I'm asking." The next day, our meeting was larger than ever. Word had spread about the Student Support Network, and students from every grade level were showing up, curious about what we were doing. Ms. Patel had to help us rearrange tables to accommodate everyone. Layla was in her element, organizing people into committees. We had groups working on creating a peer tutoring program, planning social events for new students, and developing strategies for intervention when bullying was spotted. I kept glancing at the library entrance, not sure if I was hoping Tyler would show up or hoping he wouldn't. When the meeting was in full swing and he still hadn't appeared, I tried to ignore the disappointment I felt. It had been a long shot anyway. Then, about 15 minutes into the meeting, the library door opened. Conversations faltered as Tyler walked in, alone. He stood awkwardly at the edge of our gathering, hands in his pockets, looking both defiant and uncomfortable. Andre invited me," he said when no one spoke. "Is that okay?" All eyes turned to me. I nodded and stood up. "Yeah, it's okay. We're glad you came." I gestured to an empty chair. "We were just talking about the peer tutoring program." Tyler hesitated, then walked over and sat down. The tension in the room was thick enough to cut with a knife. Ben stared at his notebook, refusing to look up. David watched Tyler like he was a bomb about to explode. Layla, bless her, picked up where she'd left off, explaining how the tutoring program would work. Slowly, the discussion resumed, though everyone was hyper-aware of Tyler's presence. About halfway through the meeting, during a discussion about how to help students who were struggling academically, Tyler raised his hand slightly. The room went quiet again. I'm pretty good at math, he said, his voice uncharacteristically uncertain. If you need tutors for that. The silence that followed was deafening. It was like the entire room was holding its breath. Then David, surprising, everyone including himself, said, "That would be helpful, actually. We're short on math tutors." Tyler nodded and the conversation tentatively continued. By the end of the meeting, he hadn't said much more, but he'd listened. Really listened. As people started to pack up, Tyler approached me. "Can we talk? Alone?" We walked out to the courtyard, finding a bench away from the other students who were trickling out of the library. "Why did you invite me?" Tyler asked once we were seated. "After everything I've done?" I thought about it for a moment. "Because I think everyone deserves a chance to change, including you." He looked away, his jaw tight. "The things people are saying about me now, that I back down, that I'm weak. Is that why you do it?" I asked. "Bully people? To seem strong?" Tyler was quiet for so long I thought he wasn't going to answer. Then so softly I almost didn't hear it, he said, "My dad says respect comes from fear. That if you don't make people fear you, they'll walk all over you." Something clicked into place. "Your dad, is he?" "He's got a temper," Tyler said flatly. "Always has. Mom left when I was 8. Couldn't take it anymore." The revelation hit me like a physical blow. All this time I'd seen Tyler as this untouchable force, someone who caused pain because he enjoyed it. I'd never considered that he might be in pain himself. "That doesn't make what you did okay," I said carefully. "But it helps me understand." Tyler finally looked at me, his expression a mix of defiance and vulnerability. "I don't need your pity. It's not pity. It's empathy. There's a difference." He shook his head slightly as if he couldn't quite believe we were having this conversation. "So what now? We become best friends and skip off into the sunset together?" I couldn't help but laugh. At the image, probably not. But maybe we don't have to be enemies either. "The things I did to Ben, to other kids, and..." Tyler trailed off, looking troubled. "You can't undo the past," I said. "But you can change what you do next." As the sun began to set, casting long shadows, across the courtyard, Tyler and I talked, really talked, about his dad, about wrestling, about the pressure he felt to be the tough guy everyone feared, about how exhausting it was to maintain that image. I told him about my little brother, about how seeing him bullied had made me feel helpless and angry, about how standing up to Tyler that day in the hallway had been as much for myself as for Ben. By the time we finished talking, the sky was darkening and the school was nearly empty. We weren't friends, not exactly. But something had shifted between us, some understanding had been reached. "I should go," Tyler said, standing up. "Dad will be wondering where I am." I nodded, suddenly concerned. "Will you be okay?" "At home, I mean." Tyler's expression closed off slightly. "I can handle my dad. Been doing it for years." "If you ever need to talk..." "I know," he cut me off, but there was no hostility in it. "Thanks for listening." As I watched him walk away, I wondered if anything would really change. Had one conversation made a difference? Or would everything go back to normal tomorrow? I didn't have the answers. But for the first time since this all began, I felt hopeful. Not just for our school, but for Tyler too. The next morning I arrived, at school early. I couldn't stop thinking about my conversation with Tyler. The things he'd shared about his home life kept me up half the night. I wasn't naive enough to think one heart-to-heart would completely change him, but it had humanized him in a way I hadn't expected. As I approached my locker, I spotted Ben waiting for me, nervously shifting from foot to foot. "Is it true?" he asked as soon as I got close enough. "You and Tyler were talking after the meeting yesterday?" News really did travel at lightning speed at Westridge. "Yeah," I admitted, spinning my combination lock. "We talked." "About what?" Ben's voice was tight, with anxiety. I opened my locker, carefully considering how much to share. Tyler had confided in me, and it didn't feel right to broadcast his personal struggles. About why he does what he does, I said finally. And about the possibility of change. Ben adjusted his glasses, looking skeptical. People like Tyler don't change, Andre. I'm not so sure about that, I replied, gathering my books for first period. Everyone has the capacity to change given the right circumstances. So what, he's going to join our group now? After everything he's done? Ben's voice rose slightly. He made my first week here a living nightmare. He's terrorized half the school for years. I closed my locker and turned to face Ben fully. I'm not saying we forget what he did. I'm saying we give him a chance to be better. Isn't that what the Student Support Network is all about? Supporting all students? Ben looked away, his expression troubled. It's different with him. Why? Because... Ben stopped, struggling to articulate his feelings. Because he doesn't deserve it. I put a hand on Ben's shoulder. It's not about what he deserves, it's about who we choose to be. Before Ben could respond, David and Layla rounded the corner, deep in discussion about the peer tutoring program. They fell silent when they saw us. Everything okay? Layla asked, looking between me and Ben. We were just talking about Tyler, I said. David frowned. What about him? I took a deep breath. I think we should consider letting him join the network. For real. The reaction was immediate and predictable. David thought it was a terrible idea. Layla was more open to it, but had serious reservations. Ben remained quiet, his internal struggle evident on his face. Look, I said when they'd finished voicing their concerns. I'm not saying we trust him completely right away, but if we're serious about changing the culture at this school, that has to include giving people the opportunity to change themselves. The first bell rang, cutting our discussion short. As we headed to our separate classes, I could tell they were all still processing the idea. I couldn't blame them. I was still processing it myself. In the hallway between second and third period, I spotted Tyler at his locker. He was alone, which was unusual. Normally, he was surrounded by his crew. Our eyes met briefly across the crowded hallway, and after a moment's hesitation, he gave me a small nod. I nodded back. It wasn't much, but it was something. By lunchtime, rumors were flying. Some people said Tyler and I had fought after the meeting. Others claimed he'd joined our group and was now somehow co-leader. The wildest rumor suggested that the whole thing had been a setup from the beginning, that Tyler and I had orchestrated everything to become the most powerful students at Westridge. I couldn't help but laugh at that one as I sat down at our usual table, which was now so crowded we'd had to push 2 tables together to accommodate everyone. Have you heard what people are saying? Layla asked, sliding in beside me with her lunch tray. Some of it, I replied. My favorite is the one where Tyler and I are secret best friends who planned this whole thing. Layla didn't smile. It's not funny, Andre. People are confused. We need to set the record straight. She was right, of course. The Student Support Network had become a significant presence at Westridge in a very short time. What we did and said mattered now. So what's the truth? David asked, joining us. About you and Tyler. I looked around the table. Everyone was listening now, waiting for my answer. The truth is, we talked. I learned some things about him that helped me understand why he acts the way he does. That doesn't excuse his behavior, but it gives it context. I paused, making sure they were all following. I think he's at a crossroads. He can keep being the person everyone fears, or he can try to be something else. I think we should give him the chance to choose the second option. The table was quiet for a moment. Then Ben, surprising everyone, spoke up. I agree with Andre. All eyes turned to him. Don't get me wrong, Ben continued, pushing his glasses up nervously. I'm not saying I forgive him for what he did to me, but he glanced at me. Like Andre said, it's about who we choose to be, and I choose not to shut someone out who might be trying to change. I felt a surge of pride for Ben in that moment. It couldn't have been easy for him to say that. So what's the plan? Ryan asked. We just welcome him with open arms? No, I said firmly. We establish clear expectations. He has to demonstrate that he's serious about changing. But we give him the opportunity to do that. The discussion continued. Throughout lunch, with opinions divided. By the end, we'd reached a tentative agreement. Tyler could attend meetings and participate in network activities, but he'd be on a kind of probation. Any return to bullying behavior would result in his removal from the group. After school, I found Tyler in the gym practicing alone. He was working on takedowns, his movements precise and controlled. He stopped when he noticed me. "Hey," he said, grabbing a towel to wipe his face. "Hey," I replied. "Got a minute?" We sat on the bleachers and I explained what the network had decided. Tyler listened without interrupting, his expression unreadable. "So I'm on probation," he said when I finished. "Basically, yeah," he nodded slowly. "That's fair. More than fair, actually. So you want to join?" Tyler was quiet for a moment, staring down at his hands. "I don't know if I can be what you all want me to be." "We don't want you to be anything except honest," I said, "about trying to change." He looked up at me, his usual confidence nowhere to be seen. "What if I can't? What if this is just who I am?" It was a question I hadn't expected, a vulnerability I wasn't prepared for. "I don't believe that," I said finally. "I think we all have choices. Every day we choose who we want to be. Even with my dad the way he is, in that house." I hesitated. This was territory I wasn't equipped to navigate. "Have you talked to anyone? About your dad? A counselor or something?" Tyler laughed, but there was no humor in it. "Yeah, that would go over great. My dad finding out I talked to a counselor." "There are resources, Tyler. People who can help. I turn 18 in 4 months," he said. "I can handle it until then." I wanted to push the issue, but I could tell from his expression that he was closing off. So instead, I changed the subject back to the network. "The tutoring program starts next week. We could use your help with math if you're still interested." He seemed to relax slightly. "Yeah, I could do that." As we talked about the details, I noticed a change in Tyler's demeanor. When he spoke about helping other students with math, there was an enthusiasm I'd never seen from him before. It was like he was allowing himself to imagine a different kind of life, a different way of being seen at Westridge. The next week was a test for everyone. Tyler showed up for his first tutoring session, visibly nervous but determined. The students he was assigned to were wary at first, understandably. But Tyler's knowledge of math was genuinely impressive, and his patience as a tutor surprised everyone, including himself. "He explained limits better than Mr. Johnson ever has," one junior told me afterward, sounding amazed. Meanwhile, the network continued to grow and evolve. We started a lunch buddy program to make sure no one ate alone. We organized study groups for midterms. We even started planning a school-wide event focused on building community. And slowly, almost imperceptibly, the atmosphere at Westridge began to change. There were still cliques, still social hierarchies, but the edges seemed softer somehow. The invisible walls between different groups of students had begun to crack. The most remarkable change, though, was in Tyler himself. His old crew had largely abandoned him when it became clear he was serious about changing his ways. For a few days he ate lunch alone, refusing my invitations to join our table. Then one day, he simply showed up and sat down next to me, as if he'd been doing it all along. "This seat taken?" he asked, his attempt at casualness betrayed by the tension in his shoulders. "It is now," I replied, ignoring the surprised looks from some of the others at the table. Conversation resumed slowly, awkwardly at first, then more naturally. By the end of lunch, Tyler had even made David laugh with a surprisingly witty comment about our biology teacher's obsession with frog dissection. After lunch, as we were heading to our lockers, Tyler fell into step beside me. "Thanks," he said quietly, "for not giving up on me." "You're doing all the hard work," I pointed out. "I just made some space for you to do it." He nodded, looking thoughtful. "My dad noticed something's different. Asked me why I'm not hanging out with my real friends anymore." A flicker of concern ran through me. "What did you tell him?" "That I'm focusing on wrestling, getting my grades up for college scouts." Tyler's expression darkened. "He doesn't need to know the real reason," I wanted to say something about his home situation, to offer help somehow, but I knew from our previous conversations that he wasn't ready to accept that kind of support yet. If you ever need a place to crash, I said instead. My mom makes a mean lasagna. Tyler gave me a small, genuine smile, something I'd rarely seen from him before all this. I'll keep that in mind. As we approached my locker, I spotted Ben at his just a few doors down. He saw us coming and tensed slightly but didn't walk away. "Hey," I said as we reached him. "Hey," Ben replied, his eyes darting between me and Tyler. An uncomfortable silence fell. This was the first time Ben and Tyler had been face to face since that day in the hallway when this all began. To my surprise, it was Tyler who broke the silence. "I owe you an apology," he said to Ben, his voice low but steady. "What I did to you, there's no excuse for it. I'm sorry." Ben stared at him, clearly caught off guard. Thanks," he managed after a moment. "For saying that." It wasn't forgiveness exactly, but it was acknowledgement. A beginning. As the three of us stood there in the hallway, I realized something important. Change wasn't a destination, it was a journey. For Tyler, for our school, for all of us. And we were only just getting started.